Yes, welcome viewers, and hi once again with Winnie again, your host today, and this is another part of the previous show that we had with Pastor Hassan telling us about the types of parenting and the steps in parenting. And now the second show, or this show, we are going to pay more attention on the teenagers. You know, our kids are really nice. They're talking about everything. They share with us and we're happy to be around them. And then suddenly they are teenagers and we don't know what happens. We are cut off from their life. We don't know what they're doing. And whatever they're doing, sometimes we even learn from different people, or sometimes we're the last to know. So what we learned, my takeaway from the previous show with Pastor Hassan was, we need to be humble. We need to talk yes, to our teenagers, to our young children. Sorry, this time we're not talking about teenagers. But something that he says that keeps coming back is the humility bit. So let's swallow our pride and learn how to parent our teens different. Not for their sake only, not for our sake only, but also for the generations that will come after. For our grandchildren, for those generations that will come after. So welcome once again with Pastor Hassan, and right now my question to Pastor Hassan is going to be, Pastor Hassan, sometimes we don't know what to do with teens. What do you wish parents knew today?
That's a very deep question, by the way.
It is.
I just wish that parents would understand their teenagers. It's just a matter of understanding. You see, I'm sure you've read the book, The 5 Love Languages.
I have.
You know, we have a language of love, and I'll share this a bit later. The language of love of a teenager is spelled Trust. Trust. That is the language of a teenager. Once you understand that is how they feel loved, by knowing that mommy and daddy trusts me. Does that mean that trusting them says we become permissive as parents? No. But you need to, it comes from a place of understanding. Who are once teenagers, Winnie? You remember?
I know.
You remember that phase? It's like we've got an amnesia.
Sometimes it feels like when we get teenagers, we don't remember maybe what we went through.
No, the excuse we keep giving as parents is that for us it was simpler times, the generations, there was not a lot of temptation those days, there was not technology and whatever. We went through the same process. Yeah. We gave our parents a hard time. Our parents did not understand that it just happened to be in a different generation. And the things that they're dealing with, true, is way more sophisticated than the life we're dealing with. That is why we need to understand them more. So really, just to start off the show, understanding. And let me say this, parenting a teenager, and that season of parenting, remember we talked about what parenting is. It is a journey of stewardship. That part of the journey is the most difficult, the most tumultuous, the most stormy, the most turbulent season of parenting. For any parent, parenting a teenager is the most difficult. And there's a reason why it's the most difficult. Number one is that your child is going through the most challenging transition in the whole of their life.
Do we even know?
Those are the things now. Because we do not know what is happening, we just come harder on them and we break them. Most teenagers I've talked to have been broken not by their teachers, not by their peers, but they've been broken by their parents. And by the way, by being broken,
that love them most.
Hurt you the most. So number one is understanding is key. This is where we need to read up. This is where we need to look for information as parents. In fact, if you're listening to us and you're a parent and your children are preteen, this is like a life-saving show for you. Why? Because to you is going to be introduced information that will help you redeem the time and forego mistakes that others might not be able to follow because they've gone through the journey. There's certain things I want to share that are really, really important regarding parenting teenagers.
Please go on. Just share.
Number one is that understand the biology. Understand the biology. You see, when a child crosses the threshold of 12 years into 13 years, things that never happened to them begin to happen. Number one is that they begin to produce growth hormones that are just, they're not the usual hormones. In fact, they've been given another name, in Hamadaimon. You're like, what demons came into my teenager? All of a sudden they've changed. No, it's not a demon. It is called a hormone. So the biology
it's
changes.
Not a demon,
it's a hormone. So testosterone that happens to young men at 13, 14, 15, around right about there. The estrogen, the growth hormone of a child becoming now transitioning into a lady, does certain things to the mind, the emotions, and to even the physiology of your child. Okay? All of a sudden they begin to have desires that they never had. Okay? All of a sudden you're 13-year-old.
We never even prepared them for.
That is if we knew. We didn't even know. You know, these things, you just see your child change, all of a sudden your girl who was the sweetest little shushu, dudu, princess, now they're beginning to dress in a certain way because they want to appeal to a boy next door. Now guess what? Once we notice that, why are you? No, you start spitting and cursing. Therefore, no. It is natural. It is the biology that is happening to your child. Your child begins to have interests that they never had.
Do you think maybe parents are taken, are just shocked? Maybe we are not expecting it, then all of a sudden this is happening, and
I don't know. I think for me it is that there's a certain protective shield that you want over your child. You want your child to be the sweetest child, never making any mistake, and then boom, all of a sudden you're at their wedding. No. They are going through a process, and it's a natural process ordained by God.
So parents need to be open. We all need to be open to this process and be ready to learn.
Yeah. And you see, this season is also the most confusing season for our children.
Even us, Pastor Hassan.
Yes, there is us. But you see, as a parent, you need to know what is going on through the psychology of your child when they are transitioning to teenagehood. And when they are an early teenage, they are going through confusion of the highest order. All of a sudden they become so aware of their identity. All of a sudden they become so aware that, I'm not beautiful. Ukibaza, where did they get it? You always say, you're my sweet beautiful. No, you did, but now their allegiances have shifted. Okay? When mommy used to tell me I'm beautiful, yes, it was nice and lovely, Davy. But now, John at school has told me that I'm ugly. And it hurts deeper. So they go through confusion because they're literally evolving into a new stage of their lives. Their identity is more fragile. Their emotions are more fragile. This is where now you need to pay closer attention as a parent. Number one, pay attention to the biology. When your child is becoming, your boy is starting to do funny things in the home, know how to manage that. They're not getting spoiled. They are just responding to the impulses of their body.
What is going on
in their body? The girls are changing, they're developing breasts, their hips are widening, they start being cautious of who they are, what they dress. All of a sudden now they want to become more beautiful, they start putting on makeup, they start taking extra care of how they look on the outside, because for them, how they look on the outside speaks to who their value is. That's what they think. Yeah, the outward appearance to a teenager is a direct determinant of their inward appearance. So things are supposed to flow from the inside out, but for a teenager they don't think like that. It's from the outside in.
When you get to tell them that it's not about the outside but the inside.
It's a journey. And again,
it's not something you're going to sit her down and you tell her.
It starts from the second stage of parenting, training, before they are teenagers. Yeah. If you have a girl who is becoming 8, 9, 10, start having these conversations early. Remember I said certain cultures are now beginning to be grounded. Before they go into the coaching phase, in the coaching phase, they will tell you, Mommy, That is if you have that level of conversation with them. Some parents, most
you have
parents
the relationship.
don't have a relationship. Most parents are ready to come down on you with a stick. Hey, why are you speaking to that boy? Hey, pa, pa. And that boy told me that they liked the way my hair looked.
I know.
And for me, that's...
So I'm happy being around
Oh
them.
my goodness, are you kidding me? Yet you could still do it as a parent. Hey, my sweet daughter. Uziko wagiza katsatsi keza. You know, because you give it in abundance, they don't need to go seek it somewhere else. Anyway, before I get ahead of myself, the biology is happening. They are changing physiologically, psychologically, emotionally. Take notice and learn as they turn from 13 to 14, 15.
Pastor,
What should I
cut
do?
you off there.
Please go ahead.
Because sometimes as parents we say, no, the teacher X is going to teach them about their biology and everything. We should tell them, is it the teacher or the mother or the father or who? Sometimes it's like a blame game. The teacher should have told to them, the teacher thinks the mother should, the mother thinks, oh, it's a boy, it should be the father. So whose responsibility is it?
The teacher's role is to execute a curriculum.
Teach math, science, physics, geography.
So they will draw the organs of a reproductive organ and tell you these are the ovaries, this is the uterus. That is it. If you know where the ovaries are, you will pass with 100%. That is all they are going to do. But the functionality of that organ, the chastity of that organ, the importance, why did God ordain for us to have these organs? I'm just using that as an example.
No,
that is the role of a parent. They will not get that in detail from a teacher. Yeah.
And when we don't do it, then they hear it from the
In
friends.
very varied
yes.
versions. In varied versions. The second thing that we need to notice is that you are not the only one influencing your teenager.
Wow.
Now, remember, they are no longer a child who literally got information and everything from you as mommy and daddy. Yeah. Right now, the level where they are at, there are different elements of influence in your child. We just happen, unfortunately, to live in an age where the world has opened up. COVID has even made it, I don't know, better or worse, depending on how you look at it. We are now much more virtual than we have ever been. The level of influence on your teenager has gone up. And this is the level of influencers. You are not the only one who influences your teenager. In fact, and I need to speak directly into the camera on this one, if you did not nurture a relationship with your child before they were a teenager, chances are you have no influence at all. Wow. Because now they're being influenced by the internet, and the internet, you can't control what is coming through the internet. They're being influenced by their friends. Now, if they happen to come across friends who have no values, who come from broken homes, this is just going to be passed on. It's important because now they're in an age of influence. This is where now their identity is being sealed. This is where life-forming and destiny-forming decisions are being made. And this is where we need to take the most care as parents. You're not the only one who is influenced. The third thing that we need to know about parenting teenagers is that when they become teenagers, their allegiances begin to shift from you to their friends. Okay? They are no longer as allegiant towards you as mommy and daddy. They will listen. They will hear you rant and say, hey, we keep telling you, you need to do it. It's like, but their friends just says one word,
and she takes it in
like gospel truth. So let me tell you, you see this blunt of weed, when you take just one puff, it will be like heaven. Yet you have talked to them about emoji and just one word. Why? Because their allegiances shift. They want, it matters a lot what my friend thinks about me.
That is true.
Than what mommy and daddy thinks about me. So if for me to come into your circle and group of friends, I need to do something that is antisocial or something that is it does not make sense, they will do it in a heartbeat. Just to seek affirmation, because that is the season of affirmation and validation. Remember, they're becoming an adult. Yeah. And perhaps all they've known is don't do this, don't do this. In Jesus' name,
No one has told them.
No, tell me what the good things are. You keep telling me, don't do this, tell me, what should I do?
And I think that's what happens to our teens. We're
Exactly.
always telling them,
Yes.
until they don't.
Exactly.
Okay,
Why? Because it is punitive parenting, it is reactive parenting, it's parenting where you're just trying to put on the brakes. You see, umwana wa kanaka, they got spoiled because of ABCD. But do you know the reason why they ended up where they were? You're just telling me they got spoiled. I probably have more information about them than you because we are friends. Now, how do you deal with such a situation? Because their allegiances are shifting, you need to build your relationship with your child. You need to be open.
This time I'm watching and I think, oh my God, it's late. I think to build that relationship.
We need to try. And again, humility comes a long way. We need to try. We need to say, look, should I, in Kinyarwanda they say, kwihagararaho, and be strong and macho and say, no, what I say goes, and risk my child getting, or should I learn the things that I need to learn? This child, right now, they are hungry for a friend. They are hungry for a mentor. They are hungry for a coach.
Is it possible they can take up their parents for mentors, or?
It can be a bit difficult, especially if the foundations were a bit tough. Yeah, but you try nonetheless. It can be a bit difficult. When you find them at a place where they've shifted allegiance completely, it can be a bit difficult. They'll be like, mommy, for you, Takozi Muruko, you're always doing ABCD, you know. So it's again, like I said, this is the most toughest season of parenting. And this is where we need to be more humble.
It is very tough.
The other thing that we need to know, which is I started with this, speak the love language of your teenager. Which is trust.
Trust.
That is how the word love is spelled to a teenager. Whenever a teenager feels like mommy and daddy doesn't trust me, they write you off. They enter that invisible mode that you talked about. We talked about, I don't know if it was on the show before. Yes. Maybe you can talk about that.
Yes, I think it's something invisible. I saw from Oprah's show. And
sure.
She was asking one of the teenagers, she was actually having like a teen show, and then she asked the teenager, how do you feel at home? And the child went, invisible? And the parents who were sitting in the audience could not believe that their child actually feels invisible at home. So that is one thing that we were talking about before the show began. And what actually hurt me was that Pastor Hassan said, oh yes, that is how most teens are feeling in our homes.
Yes. And it is a coping mechanism that they have created. They have learned how to manage you and how to manage daddy. If daddy is like a militaristic dictator who comes in, by the time they become teenagers, they've devised systems and ways to please you for the moment, and then once you're away, they do the complete opposite. They manage this, they learn to cope around you, if that is the kind of parenting that you give. So, speak their language. Trust is very important. I cannot overemphasize. So by trusting, does that mean you let them do whatever they want? Of course not. But I keep telling parents, you need to balance between two things. Between being permissive and between giving permission. Okay? And you need to know, if my child is 13 and they want a phone, can I trust them with a phone at 13? Now in my household, in the Kibirango household, I can't. Because
when will you give them phones?
That's exactly now that's the balance I'm trying to say. You know? But you set goals with your teenagers and say, I will give you a phone when you turn 16. Because when you are 6, and explain to them why. You see, that's the thing. Okay? You need to say, look, number one, at 16, you will have the responsibility to be able to even pay for data and airtime.
But Pastor Hassan, do you know what they tell us when we tell them that? But all my friends have phones.
That's the thing. That's now the thing. Because you do not, we should not give in to certain pressures. But also, because all their friends who are 13 have phones, you have to explain to them why they can't have a phone at 13. But tell them, at 16 you will have a phone. And then walk that journey with them. Now, if they need to use a phone at 14, 2 years to 16, give them your phone in that moment. Let them use your phone. You're like, or you want to talk to your friend Prosi at school, please. But just be moderate, make sure you don't overuse my, oh mommy.
Pastor Hassan, do you know
Oh,
one of
mommy,
the
you know.
challenges that we have as parents? Phones.
And that's why,
Managing phones, internet,
and that is why I have used,
music.
that's why I've used that particular
everything
thing as, because it's the biggest thing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now school is online. They're using that as a reason to now get a
Let's
gadget
not
from
go
you.
there because it's
So let me use the phone as an example in building trust.
yeah.
You say, look, it's like, mommy, for you don't trust me. You think that I won't be,
And they said that,
guilt trip you.
don't you trust me?
Don't you trust you? You say, I trust you. That's why I'm able to give you my phone to use if you need to use it for 10 minutes. Do your research. Oh, you need to research about this project. Please go on my computer. You have 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But to own a personal phone, because a phone is a tool of communication. At 16, I guarantee, and when they turn 16, on their 16th birthday, you give it to them. Now that is for you if Winnie, you feel 16 is the appropriate age.
True.
For some parents it's 14, for some parents it's 15. I do not advise for parents to give kids their phone between 13 and 15 years. But if you feel like you have created an environment safe enough for your 14-year-old to have a personal phone, please, it is your home. I trust that you'll be responsible. But the phone is just one example. The other example is you need to trust them with their friends. And in trusting them, and for them to know that you trust them, is seek to know who their friends are. Seek to become friends with their friends in a way that is not intrusive.
Because they might feel like
sometimes you can be too intrusive.
Dad always shows up.
You know, it will have to be wise. But trust is important. When a child knows that mommy trusts me, when you've created a platform of conversation around tough things, before the things happen, you talk about sex, before they become sexually active, you talk about responsibility, uzima, you talk about how you manage finances before they become stewards of finances themselves. When they reach that place, it's easier to have that conversation. That's the other thing. So permission without being permissive. That's how you build trust. You set goals, you promise them things and keep your promises. And
keep your promises.
Keep your promises, because if you do not keep your promises, they will not trust you.
That is one thing I was going to say.
Yes, please.
They want to be trusted. They want to know that mommy trusts me, dad trusts me. And I think in the long run, they also learn to trust you.
Yes.
Otherwise, when I think when you don't trust them, or they think you don't trust them, because I believe we trust them, we really try. But again, we have questions that make us feel like, oh no. So I think when they feel like, oh, my parents trust me, they also learn to trust you.
Yeah, and you see, this comes with conversation. You tell them, because I trust you, I expect you to be responsible. Because you don't want for me to lose your trust, or for you to lose my trust. So I expect you to be responsible. If you've gone to a friend's party and you said it will end at 5, I expect you here at 5:30, because I trust you. But if you come at 6:30, then guess what? You begin to take my trust away, and I can't trust for you to go to another party.
You talk through it.
You talk through it before it happens, okay? And it's in her. Now I know as we speak, in some parents are like, I don't know which world you're in.
I think we sound like perfect
I know. I don't know which world you're in. Now you call up. Well, you raise
it will
a
be
plastic.
harder. It will be harder if we don't.
Exactly. This is really the ideal, and I know that all circumstances are not the same.
Yeah.
The other thing that is important, Winnie, when we are raising our children is, now this for me is the most important point that I need to make. The most important stage, I'm trying to frame it in a way that, personally, I believe, in my own opinion, and in my experience as somebody who has worked both with youth but also with men, the most important season of fatherhood is during their teenage years. The first decade is usually for mommy, because children are being nurtured, they're being cared for, and they're usually closer to mommy and daddy's stuff. And like, mommy, this morning, by the way, I will tell you, my daughter, my last born daughter,
how old is she?
She's 6. They're twins, basically. They're 6 years old. She was being a bit unkind to, so I lashed out at her. And then she went and reported me to her mom.
Oh.
And she says, Dad is being mean to me. He's speaking meanly to me. And that stage, usually the first 10 years are mommy, because mommy does a lot in inputting. Yes, daddy matters, but the most important and critical and foundational part of fatherhood is when they become teenagers. Because remember, I talked about their allegiances shift.
Does that apply to both girls and boys?
Both girls and boys. Their allegiance from mommy begins to change. For a son, he begins to look for a superhero. People who will affirm his masculinity. For a girl, she begins to look for a Prince Charming. Somebody who will sweep her off her feet. Daddy becomes that person who plays that role. So, fathers, when your children become teenagers, that is where we need you the most. The role you're going to play will outweigh whatever mommy could ever do. Because mommies usually take care of the first decade, daddies take care of the second decade. And this is the thing. I have a preteen. She's 10 years old, my firstborn daughter. I shower praises at her. I tell her, you're the most beautiful human being walking the face of the earth. She takes it in, she loves it. When she becomes a teenager, because I've deposited a lot of love and affirmation before she's a teenager, now I can be able to speak certain things to her and talk about boys and talk about, but from a place of she knows daddy loves me. She watches, because one of the ways of modeling love and affection to your teenagers is really, as a father, how you treat their mom. It also needs to change.
Can you say that again?
Fatherhood is vital for teenagers, but one of the ways to father well is you model fatherhood by how you treat their mom. If you didn't treat their mom well while they were preteens, when they become teenagers, everything you do to treat their mom rubs off of them, and it becomes what they do in treating other human beings. So that is on one hand. On the other hand is conversations. Being there for them, listening to them, advising them. You need to step up as a dad. I cannot overemphasize this, Winnie. I can talk about this until the cows come home, but it's very important. The first 10 years...
You've worked with youth, so...
The first 10 years are usually mommy years. I will tell you, I speak to teenagers and young adults, even girls, and they say, my father used to tell me. My dad used to say this. And they draw reference from these things. And some who have not had that privilege, it's a gap. They don't know, it's a vacuum. They don't. Mostly it was mommy used to tell me this, and mommy was always protective and all that. So there's a missing link. That's why we are broken.
I think parents also make a mistake there. I think I've read a book that says that it is actually a book by some lady Kenyan, and she gets she talks to youth and writes what they say. And I remember one that made me sad was the girl said that Dad used to tell me that I was the most beautiful and always told me he loved me. But when I became a teenager, I don't know where that love went.
Yes.
And the girl messed up.
Yes.
And when she was asked, she said she missed it. She didn't know what happened.
Exactly.
Suddenly, Dad could not talk to her. Suddenly, Dad didn't, reaffirm that. So, maybe
and that's why it's most important.
I know.
Before, when she's still a little princess with ribbons in her hair as an 8-year-old, yes, but it doesn't hit to the core of the soul. Where now your girl needs, because she's looking for Prince Charming. And there's so many other people who are telling her she's the most beautiful. And we know that boys say that really for one goal. Just to get to sleep with you. Yeah. It's just their minds are twisted because they've opened their minds up to a highly sexualized generation that we are in. Yeah. So they will come and throw all sorts of things to your daughter. So if you don't do it as a father and say, look, a real man takes responsibility for the people they love. I care for you, and again, we need to learn. I know it's sometimes it sounds like a foreign. Exactly, we are learning from a place of deficit.
Probably my father never told me that he loved me, and now you're telling me that I should. And I don't know. Okay, so how do I say it?
And I know that we're coming from a place where these things were not modeled to us. You can be the first generation to do it. so that now you set a good pace for the generations to come. The other thing that is important, very, very important, engage your teenager in work, meaningful work.
Winnie, I can't explain to you the countless
visits I had in my office of parents coming in and saying, and this is really now a song in homes, especially now and during COVID, is my child is antisocial. They are always in their room.
Their rooms.
Doing what? On their phones and iPad, because you gave it to them at 12. Now they're 16.
They're stuck on it.
Yeah, it is their world. Engage your teenager in meaningful work. Remember we talked about work in the previous show. Work is important, and reward their work. The last thing you want on your hand, and let me look into the camera saying this.
Yes.
The last thing as a parent you want on your hands is an idle teenager. An idle teenager is a recipe for disaster. Because when they are idle, they will fill that idleness with something that influences them. And like we said, right now, a child can be on online for 48 hours straight without sleep, and they will have interesting content to feed on. But remember, it is interesting, quote unquote, to them, but it is life draining, and it takes away from them. So as parents, we need to learn, how can I engage my child and don't let them be idle? Teach them to work. Teach them to work. Teach them meaningful service and find a way of rewarding it. If you're an entrepreneur, this is the point where every holiday your child comes and works in the business.
When we have businesses, we employ everyone else.
Everyone else but our children. We leave them home.
They're sitting in front of the TV all day.
Exactly. TV, movies, and all sorts of stuff. And that stuff just feeds onto. Then now we grow up with children who are antisocial, who do not know how to have a conversation, a meaningful conversation around people. They don't have the language because they've always been like this.
Yeah, even in our homes.
Even in our homes, you know what is interesting? As I walked into your home, I engaged your children immediately. The level of confidence, I was very intentional. The level of confidence, they looked into my eyes, they were telling me, I was like, so tell me, which school are you in, what grade? They're like, your son, Praise. Praise was telling me, I'm in this. I says, but I heard that now kids have to repeat. He says, yeah, but for us who are in Cambridge, they were having a meaningful conversation, because, and I can already tell your environment here is, they are kids, when a visitor walks into a home, the immediate default is to walk out.
True.
Because that's what we've told them. Hey, abashitsi baje. Go into the room.
And sometimes they don't know what to say.
They don't know what to say.
Sometimes they don't know. They don't know if Pastor Hassan has entered.
Yes.
So what do you talk to a pastor? What do you
Exactly.
say?
What do you say to a
They don't know, because everyone is glued onto something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you teach them to work, you just find something creative. There are always projects going around. Ask your Mudugdu, is there a school that is being built? Is there a community that's, I want to send my daughter? Let your daughter and your son engage with Abaturaje and get to know life outside the home and life outside this virtual world that is oftentimes superficial.
We close them in. We close them.
Let them engage.
They don't know what to express.
Let them work at a site. Let them pass blocks around, and you tell the site manager, this one is on my payroll. Damn issue. But meaningful work, so that they have a duality of life. There is school life, there is work life, and then there's life at home where you're like, today you worked so hard. Please feel free to be on.
I think you reminded me of a story by Fajil Man in one of his books. I think one of the sons became an engineer, but he actually picked the love and the like during holidays. Their father would tell him to go and work. So he worked with those people that could come at home, he worked with everyone, until later, even when he went to school, he felt like, I can't do this.
Yeah, and if you went and had a conversation with that child right now, you realize that they've struggled less in transitioning into a professional life than their peers.
And when I read his book, I think he just has perfect.
And their peers. Right now we have children leaving university. Right now I can tell you, I have parents that I know, they are seated at home because they don't even know how to write a CV or to go out there and seek for a job.
That is true.
Their parents have spent all this money to take them to university. Right now they are out of university, but because they were so disenfranchised and disconnected from life, because we love them so much by guarding them, it now becomes a disadvantage. So we need to know how to play. Lastly, be authentic. There is nothing that a teenager will cause your teenager to estrange themselves from you than being superficial, than being unreal, than being double-minded, than being inauthentic. And our children watch us.
So be real.
Be yourself. He will fit the weaknesses, talk about them, say, by the way, that's my weakness, guys, pray for me, I want to become better. Because there are the reason.
We shouldn't be the parents that say, that's me.
If it's a weakness, it's because you don't want to glorify a weakness. Yeah. This is who I am. But everyone says, but who you are is causing emotional damage. Yeah. Who you are causes an environment of, we can't talk, everyone feels like hiding away. I don't want to be who you are. Now guess who I become as a parent? I become the parent that I don't want my parent to be, and I become a permissive parent, which we talked about in the previous show. Now my child, I give them everything and anything. If they want an iPad at 8 years, because I don't want who you are, now no. So be authentic. Say, friends, you're growing up, this is a struggle I have, I'm trying to work on it, please hold me accountable, pray for me, be authentic, be real. Because
I think everyone should do that.
Because they feed off of what you model than what you say. The things we talked about in the first show, of if you want them to have a character, have character. If you want them to grow in a certain way, then model it. Because there's nothing that teenagers, that cause teenagers to rebel from parents.
So do that which you want them to do.
Than an inauthentic parent.
So we shouldn't be telling them do X and do Y, do Z and they're doing W.
Exactly. Be vulnerable. Reason together with your teenagers. Show your vulnerability and your weakness. They already know it. You see, that's the thing. They already know your weaknesses. But when they see that, hey, mommy is able to acknowledge that she's struggling in this area, I respect her even more. But when you present a picture, the respect for you goes up when you acknowledge. And now they don't hide their own weaknesses. They're able to express them freely to you because you're the kind of person who shares their weaknesses. So those are some of the things that I really wanted to share in raising our teenagers. It's important to understand the biology. Your child is changing. It's important for you to know that you're not their only influence. Number one is to understand that their friends mean a lot to them, so their allegiances are shifting from you to their friends. And there are ways to mitigate that is become a friend of their friends. And then you need to know how to speak their love language, which is trust. And you trust them by allowing with wisdom certain things, giving permission to certain things and not being permissive. And then last but not least, fathers taking their pivotal role because it's needed in the second decade of parenting. And then finally being authentic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pastor Hassan, my God, I've learned so much. Thank you so much. But before you leave this show, what if there's a parent out there that is struggling? What one message? At least one message you can give to them? Thank you. Yeah, what would that be?
Let me just look into the camera and say this. This is really from a pastoral heart, but also a heart of a parent. I'm a parent just as you are a parent. Now I know if I sat with you, dear parent, and spoke to you and said, at the back of my mind, or your mind, what do you do? Why do you do what you do? Why do you go out there and struggle and work and to make ends meet? Most of you will say that you're doing this for your children, that you're working for your children. And that is a good thing. But unfortunately is that we have delegated parenting to all sorts of elements in pursuing these things for our children, yet the most important thing that your child needs is your love, your presence, your intentionality. Even as you pursue these things, you can balance them out by being a present parent. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to accumulate all these things, make all this money, and then you use that very money to either nurse your child as they're in rehab, nursing things that came about because you weren't there, or your child being an unproductive citizen. Now they have children, now you start paying school fees for your grandchildren at a time where you are supposed to be retiring. What am I saying? educate yourself as a parent. Unlearn certain things that you've been using to parent. Relearn. There are things you need to learn over and over again, and also learn new things. And we are all on a parenting journey, and we all make mistakes. Own up to your mistakes, and then do better. And although at the end of the day, we want a generation of parents who are present. Right now, you can no longer you can no longer give the excuse of I am busy. Busy doesn't cut it, because as you are busy, your child is being parented by the media, being parented by friends who have no value system, being parented by all sorts of virtual content that comes to them by way of the internet. And we've seen busy parents who have been able to balance it out. You know what, Winnie? One of the things I was told when I just come into this country is that the president of this country and the first lady used to drop their children to school and pick them up. Not every day, but every so often. They were so involved. And I don't think that there's anyone busier than the first couple in this nation. But they tried, despite their busy schedules, to be there for their children. That is why their children have turned out to be the way they are. What am I saying is that yes, you are busy, yes, you are pursuing all these dreams and money and power, but you can still give time, because that's the most important resource for you to parent your child. So that when you're done, you can be able to say that you're passing on a responsible, productive, effective citizen for generations to come. So that is really my parting shots.
Wow, thank you so much, Pastor.
Thank you for having me.
That was so deep.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. God bless you so much. We'll call you once again.
Sure.
Please come again.
To be an honor.
And to the people that asked to have Pastor Hassan today for this show, it was worth it, I believe, and I know. So thank you so much for picking out his name. Thank you, viewers. Thank you for being with us. I cannot add anything to what Pastor Hassan has said. Please keep liking us, keep telling us it was okay. Thank you so much. God bless you. See you next time.